Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I accidentally turned off the other video. Okay, so in the previous video, I went over your ELA packet. Uh, Instead of it being labeled by days, like before it was labeled day 1, day 2, they've got them actually labeled by date. So Miss Clyde went over April 13th and April 14th. And so today, I'm going to go over April 15th, 16th, and 17th in your packet. Okay, let's get started here. So the first task for April 15th is to complete the April 15th task in the assignment packet. Now, when we go over here to your packet for April 15th, this is actually a continuation of the journey of Oliver Woodman. So you're still writing about the same story. Number 1, authors often use collections, such as a collection of photographs would be a story told through many photographs as part of their story structure. What type of collection did the author of The Journey of Oliver Woodman use? And if you were listening closely, you heard Miss Clyde actually answer that in one of the previous videos. So what's the answer, guys? Waiting. That's right. Letters. That's what you were thinking. The author uses a collection of letters to actually tell the story. Now, in number 2, it says, how did the use of this collection help the author tell the story? So how did the author use this collection of letters to tell the story? Think about why the author used the letters to tell the story. How did it make the story interesting? But what were you able to learn through the collection of letters? So think about that as you answer that question. Now, you should answer it in 2 to 3 complete sentences. 2 to 3 complete sentences. And no run-on sentences, guys. Make sure that your sentence ends with a period and that you don't just keep going on and on and on with words like and, but, or, because once you keep using those words more than once or twice, you probably have a run-on sentence. So make sure that they end and then you start a new sentence with a capital letter. Your April 15th reading log is just like the others, or I'm sorry, not just like the others, very similar to the others, where you actually have to write about what you've read. You're going to write the name of your book and the pages that you read. Boys and girls, I forgot to mention in the other video that you may not finish your book, and that's okay. If you're reading a chapter book, just like in class, I tell you guys all the time, it is perfectly normal that when you write about your reading, think about our reading response journals that we were writing in before we left for school. We had started to write in those more often. So after we would read, we would stop and reflect about our reading and write about it. So this is basically the same thing. It's just on a different sheet of paper. So whenever you write down the pages that you read, let's say you read pages 50 to 85. Obviously, you didn't finish the chapter book. So just write about what you read in that part of the book. Write about, when it tells you to write a summary, just write about the most important parts of that. Here it says to pick your favorite character and describe him or her, or write 3 things you learned from your reading today. They're giving you an option depending on what you actually read. So let's say that you read nonfiction, or if you're in the middle of reading a nonfiction book, you can write down 3 new interesting facts that you learned or something new that you learned in the book. But if you're reading a fiction book, then you could pick your favorite character in that book and describe him. Now, this is right up our alley because, guys, all year long, we have been really focusing on writing about or understanding characters, and then, of course, writing about characters based on their motivations. We have described them using character traits, and, of course, we've made decisions and inferred their character traits based on their actions and what they say, what they do in the story. So think about those things as you're writing. And once again, you know, Miss Clayette's going to expect what? That's right. 3 or 4 nice complete sentences. Okay, moving along. So that was for April 15th. Now for April 16th, your directions are to write a letter to someone telling about your experiences since you have been out of school. Use the checklist to ensure you include all the characteristics of a friendly letter. Write the letter in the space provided after the checklist. This is a rubric. You have seen these rubrics before many, many times before we do or after we finish our writing. Ms. Clayette has given you one of these to go back and use to check your work. And actually, I say at the end, but I always give it to you actually at the beginning. I give it to you at the beginning for you to have throughout your writing process. And then we look at it again at the end to make sure that we have all these components in our writing. So let's look at 3 because that's always what we're shooting for. We're not shooting for the 1s or the 2s. 2s are okay, but if you were to get a lot of 2s on your writing, then you would still have a lot of points marked off and your grade wouldn't be very good. So we want to shoot for the 3s. Let's think about what we need to have. And boys and girls, I also want you to think about the writing checklist that we have in our classroom because I know you guys have not forgotten about that. You helped me create that. And your writing checklist was even much better than this one. So let's think about this. If you're actually writing a friendly letter, and some of you may be thinking, well, I've never written a friendly letter before, but yes, you have. We have written friendly letters to our Midland Valley readers and to other people that have done nice things for us or given us gifts in our classroom. We have written thank you letters, and those thank you letters were written in a friendly letter format. So let's just go over these components. You should have 5 parts in your letter. That includes a heading, greeting, body, closing, and signature. And of course, all these things in the right places. You need to have a clear purpose for your letter. That means your letter easily shows the purpose for writing. So if I were to read your letter, I would know why you wrote the letter. And of course, your purpose is to write a letter telling about your experiences since you have been out of school. Boys and girls, I would love for you to write this letter to me. So I would love for you to write, Dear Mrs. Clayette, because I don't know everything that you've done since you've been out of school. So I'd really enjoy that if you would address it to me. And think about me when you're writing it. Think about what are all the things that I've been doing since I've been out of school that I would like to tell Mrs. Clayette. Now, obviously, guys, none of us have been on any kind of vacations. So you don't need to try to think of something, imaginary that you haven't done or something you would like to do. Tell me about the things that you've actually done. Playing in your yard, playing with your dog, teaching your dog new tricks, helping your mom around the house, doing your chores. Some of it may even be things that aren't so fun, but it's still things that you've done at home and reflects what your life has been like since you've been at home. So make sure you have a purpose. Readability, your handwriting is neat, and order of sentences makes it easy to read. Ooh, we talk about that one all the time in class. You can be writing the best words ever, but if I can't read it and you can't read it, then it's no good. Right, guys? Got to be able to read it. Okay, and then punctuation, commas, and periods are used appropriately. And I'm going to say it again. Make sure that you write complete sentences. After you write a sentence, say it out loud. Think about it. Does it make sense? If it doesn't make sense to you, it's not going to make sense to me or anyone else either. So use your best handwriting whenever you write this. And I did want to show you a chart that I pulled up that has all the components of a friendly letter. So if you are not sure about what the heading is, the greeting, the body, here it is, y'all. Okay, so let's look up here at the heading. The heading has the date. The greeting is where you address the person you're writing to. Oftentimes a friendly letter or even a thank you note starts off with Dear Sarah, Dear Mrs. Clyott. If you're wondering how to spell my name, it's capital M-R-S period, then capital C-L-I-E-T-T. So that would be your greeting. And then the body, you probably remember this because we talk about the body in all of our writings, is the meat of it. Think about it like the hamburger in your, if you were to actually eat a hamburger with a bun, the hamburger would be the meat or the main part of your writing. So think about that as your body. It's all the juicy stuff in the middle, all the good details. And then the closing is where you actually write, you actually end your letter. And a lot of times you end with your friend. Since you're writing to me, you could write your student, your friend, your sister, your brother. It would depend on who you're writing to. Tamika, for example, could write your niece, Tamika, whenever she was writing to Uncle Ray. And then the signature is your name. And that's, of course, you would write it actually in your handwriting, which we call our signature. So boys and girls, that just kind of reminds you of all the important parts of a letter. Now remember, you also have this in the story about Oliver Woodman. Each page is written in friendly letter format. So you can see that each page has a heading, a greeting, body, closing, and a signature. Okay, and then for April 17th, so we went over April 16th to write a letter telling someone about your experiences that you've had since you've been out of school. Once again, you're going to read independently for 30 minutes, complete your reading log. And then for April 17th, it says to read over the letter you wrote yesterday with someone. Boys and girls, I actually want you to do this. I want you to wait until the next day and read over the letter with someone else in your family. It could be an older brother, sister, grandmother, grandfather, mom, or dad. And think about, what can you do to make it better? Remember, there's a difference between editing and revising. Editing is just correcting mistakes, like spelling mistakes. Adding punctuation, adding a question mark if you left out a question mark. Editing is correcting mistakes, but revising is actually adding things to make it better. So if you only wrote like 3 sentences, you would need to add a couple more sentences to give enough detail so it looks like the type of writing that a 3rd grader would do. You may discover that you actually need to change your sentence around so that it makes more sense. Maybe you left out some details that you think would be important for your reader. So think about that whenever you're revising. Think about how you can actually make it better. And sometimes we can just make it better by adding adjectives, more descriptive words that help our reader to know what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, or what it looks like. So think about our adjectives. Unpack your adjectives. Okay. Once again, you will read independently for 30 minutes. And it can even be a story from your Journeys textbook. But guys, once your parents click on that link for Epic, you guys can read all sorts of books from the Epic library. So I'm really excited about that. I hope that works out well for us. And then going back. Oh, and real quick, I know that this does not have lines on it. And a lot of times it's much easier to write with lines. So boys and girls, you can get your parents to draw lines on here for you, or you could just get a sheet of notebook paper if you have it and actually write your friendly letter on a sheet of notebook paper. That might make it easier for you. Just make sure that you keep it with your packet. So whenever you turn this next packet in, you'll be turning in your work with that as well. Okay. So for your April 16th reading log, you will just write a summary of what you read. That could be fiction or nonfiction, and a summary is just some of the most important parts of what happened in that part of the story. And remember, you may not be finishing a book, and that's totally fine. You're just going to write about the part of the book that you read. Okay. And I believe we finished up for the week for ELA. I will be back with the math portion in the next video. See you guys soon.